Cinematography. So we've assembled an amazing panel for you today that I'm very excited about. So I'm going to invite them up to the stage. First, I'm inviting to the stage video makerist and self-defined sensation, Gerald Undone. The beautiful filmmaker, content creator, Krieg. And the amazing video maker, Armando Ferreira. Have a seat, guys. Thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. How are you today?
Good.
We're doing good.
Oh, and I'm Michaela from Alpha Universe and Sony Senate. I'm going to give you guys a chance to introduce yourselves so that whoever doesn't know you, I mean, who doesn't know you here? Everyone should know you, right? Can know a little bit more about who you are. Gerald?
You want me to go first?
Sure.
Hello everybody, my name is Gerald Undone. I make YouTube videos about camera gear, I guess, tutorials, and they're on the nerdy side, so you have to be into details, and I think I'm underselling this.
Are you overselling or underselling?
Underselling, yeah.
Well, let's see some overselling. What does that look like?
It's the greatest channel on YouTube, so
Thank you.
if you're not subscribed already, terrible mistake. Pull out your phones, I'm waiting.
All right,
I'm
Sarah.
letting that slide because I don't have a channel on YouTube. But I'm Krieg. I am a content creator. I do commercial video and photos. I shoot hybrid for a lot of brands, and mostly I just post about my kids on Instagram because I refuse to monetize that page since my life is monetizing other people's. But I am proud to be here representing all the female photographers and filmmakers out there.
Cool.
Armando Ferreira, similar to Gerald, I have a YouTube channel. I shoot, most of the time I do YouTube, but sometimes I dabble into commercial projects, but like Gerald, a lot of my time right now is YouTube. So.
And your channel is better than Gerald's, right?
No, it's not. He's the nerdy one.
Do I need to stand back?
Only one of us can be the greatest.
Both of your channels are amazing, and that's why you're here. Well, thank you. Let's talk about a few things. We've had a nice conversation earlier, actually, about what it means to be a content creator, a video creator, and so on. And I think one of the main points that everyone's noticing lately is the blurring of the lines between what is a video creator, what is a filmmaker. The technology has made it so much easier for us to blur those lines. And we've had some recent launches that are making that even easier, such as the FX30, so we're going to talk about that. But let's start with the Alpha 7R5 because that's what we're here for this week. You guys had a chance to play with it for a little bit. Gerald had it so he could do a review. It's a good hybrid camera, right? It's a camera geared toward photographers with amazing video capabilities. So let's talk a little bit about that and talk a little bit about hybrid photography and filmmaking or video making. So let's start with you, Gerald. What are your thoughts on the A7R5?
What was the question? I think it's great. What we were talking about earlier was that it's a photo first camera, right? That's the idea. And I think that there's this notion that photo cameras have to, I think there's like a purity aspect where photo cameras have to be for photo, and then the video features seem almost like some secondary thing. I don't want to worry about that or whatever. But cameras these days are getting so good at being both that if we're looking at it from the photo lens, the video capabilities are also, they're just way better than they ever were before, that to overlook them feels like you're overlooking a massive component of your camera that is extremely capable. And in the case of the R5, there's always ways that you could nitpick like how the video isn't perfect because of maybe that it has some photo aspects, but it's still so much better than anything we had a couple of years ago, and still fully capable of what I imagine most people would need, especially if you're somebody who thinks of yourself as a photographer first. And the video capabilities of the R5 are stellar, you know?
Yeah, we were talking about how people, I think, sometimes you get that there's a little judgment when you walk in with a tiny mirrorless and they've already signed the contract for how much they're going to pay you, and they're like, wait a minute, where's the stuff? And I would roll in with my minivan and my mom jeans and my R5, and I'm like, hold my beer, guys, don't worry, you're going to like it. And then, you put the cage on it when you're shooting it, it gets bigger, but I think people are expecting to see a Venice these days, but because so much of what I do, especially for like the smaller brands, so during COVID I shot a lot for Huggies and Scary Mommy, Disney Plus, and all those people, they don't see what I'm shooting on at home when it's COVID, you know? They don't know what I'm doing, and they were all happy with the content, and so I think it's really, the platform is changing, and a lot of these brands want commercials, they want video and photo, you know, they want both. And so I love having that flexibility, and I love that also we can be a little undercover. You know, it used to be with a video camera, you're like really, you're noticeable. And these days I think you can do both, and you can do it seamlessly. And I love all the versatility.
Especially if you're like at a park, and you have your photo camera,
if
but you
you're
can
like
also shoot
secretly
wicked
filming
video.
children at a park, that's not weird at all. And nobody would
nobody
know.
asks for a permit because you don't have events.
No, but it's true. Yeah, you get a lot less head turns when you're shooting, and a lot more flexibility to run and gun. I think a lot of us, we no longer have like a DP and a grip and a sound guy. We're doing it all, and there's benefits to that. And having gear like this available to us is one of those benefits.
Yeah, I used to shoot a lot of with like bigger cinema cameras, and that would be something that when we would go outdoors, everybody would be like, what kind of movie are you guys shooting? Are you doing? And it just became, that's one of the reasons why I switched over to the FX3, and it's been my primary camera now for almost 2 years, since we got it in January. Because we can go anywhere, travel with that camera, and nobody really bats an eye. And the reason we like that camera so much is not only can it break down to this like tiny little camera, but you can also rig it up for client work and make it seem like it's this big camera. Funny story, like 6 years ago, I want to say, I was doing this commercial shoot, like tagging along with this company, and at the time I was using a DSLR, and I remember asking them, I said, why are you guys using these big cameras instead of these smaller, especially for like the stuff that we were working on? It was like a local car dealership commercial. And he goes, because if I showed up with the camera that you have, I wouldn't get $60,000. So it's all perception, but I think that perception has changed because of the way everything is like, you know, TikTok, Instagram, the content that is being produced today, like now it's being accepted that it's okay to have a smaller camera because the quality is there. Yeah. And I don't think people, like you in your case, especially during the COVID times, you're saying how you're producing these big commercial stuff for these big brands, and they don't know the camera that you're using, they're just looking at the end result. Yeah. And seeing that these cameras can produce these high quality level of images, you know, it's to the point where it doesn't really matter. I mean, to some degree.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Well, you guys just saw the A7R5, with exception of Gerald, who's had it for a little bit for the review, but you shoot with other Sony cameras as well. And I know that one of the benefits that our users are telling us about is the color science transfers over, depending on, regardless of which model you use. So what do you currently use? Let's tell everybody what are your main bodies that you shoot on for your content.
So in my YouTube studio, my sort of main talking head camera is now an A7 IV. It was an A1 prior to that, an A7S III prior to that. So I definitely can, because to speak to what you said, I kind of try to make everything fast. So I have like presets in Resolve, like they're basically like little images that you can just drop onto your footage. Anyway, so I can tell when I switch a new camera, when I apply that over, if it works or not. And so far the differences have been marginal, which is good. It's just like little tweaks. And right now I'm actually mixing like 3 different cameras. I still have an A1, I have an A7 IV, and I have an A7S III that I use sometimes as well. And when I brought the R5 in, they were all within like a few percent of where I think if I didn't like highlight it, you wouldn't notice. But A7 IV is matching in color. Yeah, the A7 IV is my go-to camera now. I just think it strikes such a great balance for, especially for a controlled environment, talking head, where it's on a tripod. I think it's like the best way you can go for the money right now for image quality.
Yeah, I use multiple A7 IIIs. I have an A7R4 for some of my commercial when they need a billboard, and then I have a 3 beater that I love that I just bring with me to things like this, and then I have a 4. And I would like the R4 to become the R5, which I have not told my husband yet, but he's going to find out when I get home and be thrilled that you guys keep rolling out great gear.
So So as I mentioned,
You're
I
welcome.
use the FX. We have multiple FX3s, and then for client work, we just rent out cameras depending on what the project is. I stopped caring about buying like the most expensive, camera. It's not feasible. We incorporate the price of the project into the rental. So yeah, it's cool to own a Venice, but it's going to cost you almost $100,000 while fully rigged.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. That's why we use FX3 because it's going to give us that cinema quality. I can do so much stuff with that camera quickly because time is money, especially when we have a bunch of kids and stuff. So it's like, and then for photos, I use an A1.
S-Cinetone. I love S-Cinetone for that reason. I don't know all of you who are shooting out there in log, bless you. If I don't have someone color grading that footage, I'm like, I'm out. I have like 4 more things on my docket, and it saves so much time shooting in S-Cinetone. I find it to be.
Yeah, for quick turnaround, it's great. And then
Yeah.
for photos, I use the A1. But now that the RR5 came out, it's like, ooh, this is kind of like, even though I know it's photography first, it still has really incredible video features that you can kind of just use it as a whole package.
Yeah, I feel like anybody out here who thinks there's a photographer, you're a photographer maybe, you also have the full kit to be a filmmaker or a videographer right now if you're shooting these Sony cameras. And it may not seem like it, but you do. And I think there's so much work out there for hybrid photographers. Every client wants video. And so I would encourage you all to explore and maybe watch some YouTube. I don't know if there's any tutorials out there on how to use these cameras, but get some knowledge and hit record and give it a try.
Well, you guys had a chance to work with the FX30, which is the latest cinema line camera that we launched. Let's talk a little bit about that. You use the FX3, you tried out the FX30.
Yeah, I tried out the FX3. One of the things, I think it was Gerald who mentioned, or somebody mentioned, it was the color science matches up really nicely with the FX3. So a lot of times we need, like, an example, we're filming a YouTube video, or even if we're doing something production. So, like for YouTube, if I wanted to say a top-down shot, to invest in a more expensive camera, the FX30 that I can match with my FX3 is going to be great, or any other Sony camera. Or if I'm doing client work for a gimbal, because it is a Super 35, I'm able to get a little bit closer, and I can use these smaller lenses and fly it on the gimbal. And there's a lot of beautiful Super 35mm lenses that I cannot use with an FX3 because of full frame. There's no way to punch in. So the FX30 allows me to go back and use those type of lenses. It just gives me a different creative look.
I will say, if anybody's played with the FX30, the lenses, the 15mm 1.4G series that they came out specifically for this APS-C it's beautiful. It has great lens flare, which isn't something always we get from those Sony lenses, and I really loved it.
And it's cute.
And it's so cute. It's so compact.
Sure, what do you think? FX30, you've done a full review on it.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the description. You guys can check it out.
Like and subscribe.
I like it.
Summarize.
A driving factor for me often is for the price, right? Because I don't know. Sometimes I already have the more expensive camera, but I'm still reviewing it. It's like, if I had to buy it now, I could shoot this for less, because why spend more? Like what Armando was saying. So the FX30 has a couple limitations. I mean, be aware going into it. It's not the low light monster that the FX3 is, right? And you have APS-C things to figure out. Maybe if you're using just the full frame lenses and you have an FX3 and FX30, you might have some field of view work you got to do when you switch back and forth. But other than that, I mean, it's, what is it, $1,700-$1,800 US?
Yeah, 18.
And if you're shooting at like reasonable ISOs, it's a great looking image for less money. So,
and the fact that you can buy it with or without a top handle.
That was a smart choice. I don't know what I'm pointing at. Good job.
We have like 4 FX3s.
I wouldn't say without a handle, yeah.
Yeah.
And we have 4 FX3s, and I can tell you right now, like 3 of those I would have bought without the top handle. Yeah, we don't need top handles.
Interesting. I do want to go back to something you all brought up, which is the lenses. So let's talk a little bit more about that. What lenses do you use right now mainly use for what you shoot? Like, what are your go-tos for video?
I'm using several non-Sony lenses.
Okay, moving on.
Talking and
It's a leap, dude.
That's
I do use the
awkward.
35-1.8. That's on the main camera. That's another great bang for the buck lens.
Look, it's all right. You know, Sony licenses other brands, and we're happy for people to get the best lens they can for what they want to do. So.
But to humor the Sony crowd, on the main camera I use a 35-1.8, which I think is a great lens if you were doing both photo and video. Especially prior to all this focus breathing compensation, it was like a breathing corrected lens that was small, light, white, sharp. It's not the best lens. The G-Mask is better, but that's a great lens. I still have that on my camera, and the new 70-200 is outstanding.
GM2.
It's not often a Mark II of these telephoto zoom. It's tricky. If you have the first one, you're like, drop another $3,000 for like. So marginally better. This is because when I had the Canon ones, the same thing. They have like 9 of those lenses, and I always had trouble justifying getting it. This is the first like telephoto zoom where I was like, the Mark II is worth it. Sell that Mark I, spend a little extra money and get the Mark II. It's a phenomenal lens. Maybe Sony's best lens. Like,
wait, which one? The 20?
The 70-200.
Okay.
We actually have our lens engineer here today from Japan. I don't know where he is.
Big round of applause for that person.
He's going to be very happy to hear that.
I like the Mark II with the 24-70,
Yeah.
and that's usually what I use on camera 1 at all times. I don't know if it's being a woman and a mom, or I really love shooting wide open and like a motive bokeh type, you know, like those Disneyland commercials of children running to Dumbo. That's my jam. I'm like 100% with the lens flare anytime I can get it. So my camera 2 almost always has like the 85 1.8, which I know sounds weird, but the 1.4 I find a little bit noisy for video. And I love that 85 1.8.
That was one of the first lenses I bought for Sony.
It's a great lens, and it's so affordable, and it looks incredible on video. I also have the 135, which looks great, but you really need to watch your stability. And those 3 go with me everywhere. And then I also have some Zeiss lenses, but I always use Sony first. But the Baddest line's pretty great too.
For YouTube, 24-70 is like our go-to.
Good one.
And then I used to do a lot of primes, like 50, and that's 70-200, which I just picked up. Oh my gosh. Like, it's just B-roll king. That's like my new favorite lens.
Yeah, it's so good. Also, if I can just shout out, the Tamron 35-150 is excellent.
Thank you, Gerald. I so very much appreciate that.
I just feel like it'd be an injustice because that lens is always pointed at me as well.
It's all right. Whatever's the best lens
But
for you.
I label A camera the one that has the 35-1.8 on it. That's the B camera that has the Tamron. Okay.
Okay, all right. Of course, yes. You mentioned stability. We have the new power zooms. Little known fact, we're the only ones who make power zooms. Have you tried those out? Because that's a big major thing for video and for vlogging especially, right?
I like the new little for the FX30.
Yeah.
It's a 10-20, right?
Yeah.
So you get like a 15 to 30 like full frame equivalent field of view, and it's cute, and it works on the FX30.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty good.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't like about the power zooms is they all are a little bit slower, I guess. Like except for the big, what is it, the 16 to 35 is the power zoom.
There's a
right?
16 to 35, yeah.
I think that's the only one that's faster than f4. So.
But like if we're shooting in 8K, we can zoom in post. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, that's when you do your power zooming?
Yeah, that's when I do my power zooming. Unless I'm shooting The Office, I don't really do a lot of zooming in camera. But it is, you know, it's a fun technique. I like.
Rather than set the magnification,
Yeah.
you hold Option and like scroll on the X-axis, like.
Let's just punch in post sometimes, and it is nice that we have, especially because right now I think all of us are asked to shoot everything. My favorite is like we want this horizontal. We also want a vertical version, and then we want a 1x1. And I'm like, great. So composition is dead. We're just gonna go wide and punch in, and then you have to really make some life choices. And so. It's hard.
You're shooting everything at 12 mil now, just so you have like all the options. So.
I love that 15 millimeter. Let me just tell you. No, so it's really interesting though, because we're asked to really stretch, and they don't always understand or have the time in the day to shoot it multiple ways. So having that ability is really helpful, I think, in terms of resolution.
You mentioned vertical video just now. How much of your video making has changed over the past year or so now with these new formats coming out? Is anyone getting involved in TikTok? And, you know, How are your Instagram reels done? Do you do anything differently than when you do your commercial video?
I'll take point on this because I'm clearly the best at.
You're very vertical, very tall. How do you like it?
So I made 2 TikToks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I posted them to Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts.
Well done.
I've since deleted them all.
Oh, wow.
Anybody else have anything to say?
So I will say I was working with Instagram when they launched Vertical U. They chose 10 of us creators, and I somehow got in there as like the mom talk. And I was the one naysayer, like, people don't see up and down, they see left or right. Nobody's gonna like this. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah, your eyes aren't like.
And I'm proud to say I was clearly right. Vertical video didn't take off well. But it was interesting to be in it at the beginning because back then they were asking us to film vertically and we didn't have the screen capabilities. One of the best things about these like R4s and the R5, not the R4, the regular 4, the R5, is the gesticulating screen that really gives you the flexibility. And I think more and more clients want that. I have a lot of clients that just full in on vertical. That's what they want. So I do think it's an interesting look. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with the Gerald camp. I've tried it. I don't like it. Same thing. I uploaded a video to TikTok, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. I can't. I know that's the trend. I know that's the direction that everybody's going to.
We accept that we're wrong.
Yeah.
We just.
Well, do you? That's what I was gonna ask. Is it a trend or is it a fad? Like, do you?
It's a
you
paycheck.
deleted your videos, so.
I do what they pay me.
I deleted
to do,
mine.
so I'm not
I did it on
content.
spite though. You know. I don't know. About fads and stuff like that. I don't know.
No, you don't know.
I'm always like way behind on everything.
Yeah, sure.
So.
Yes.
But if vertical video doesn't pan out 5 years from now or something,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say told you so.
Yes.
Even though I didn't ever tell anybody that.
We will do this again in
Good.
5 years.
Exactly.
We will discuss it.
And I'll be like, you'll remember. Roll the tape, and then.
I will remember this.
Exactly.
And it's going to be a vertical video they roll.
Yeah, it is vertical video. It's a good one.
So let's talk a little bit about getting into video. A lot of people are hybrid shooters or want to be hybrid shooters or want to do more video, but they're a little bit afraid of it. How do you get into doing video now and for the two of you with very successful YouTube channels? If someone gets started today, can they still be successful on YouTube?
That's hard because the answer is yes. The answer can't be no, but it's also not easy. And I assume that as much as things are getting easier when it comes to technology, making everything more open, and barriers to entry are so few and thinner than they were years ago, but that also creates an environment of, I don't want to call it competition because it's not really like that and it's not the most competitive space, like it's more of a collaborative space, which is great, but it's just more like an output and then machine learning that's designed to sort of like put the right video in front of a user that has to see it and you have, you're trying to access the viewers and stuff. It's just challenging is what it is. But anybody that says otherwise is doing something currently that's maybe working for them. They might have like some kind of survivor bias where they think, I'm successful doing this and these are my results, but they're not looking at what the next cool thing is anyway, or what like when I made my channel, there was already sort of a way to make camera videos. It was already established. But what I was looking to do or solve or trying to find answers for, it wasn't available. So I did what I did, knowing that nobody was going to watch it. Because why would they? It's ridiculous. My videos are silly, right? But then people did watch it, and then it turns out like I turned out I was doing something different. So for me to then say, but now there's nothing else different to do. I'm sorry, it's all been taken. So go home. Like that's not a thing, right? I just don't know what they are, but they gotta be out there, don't they?
But that's what's amazing about YouTube is like you give Gerald an R5, you give me an R5, and our videos are going to be completely different. And I think what you offer is obviously going to be different from what we offer. So there's always going to be somebody that's going to be interested in your content. And I think personality is also a big thing. Some people just jive, like, I really like that person. They're cool. So I mean, there's definitely a place for everybody. And it also, like in my case, like I also speak Spanish. So being able to leverage another language where there's less competition, that could be another way if you think about it. It's like you speak multiple languages. It's like, well, maybe I won't focus on the English side, but I'll focus on this other language if you know it. Because my Spanish channel, I barely upload and it's like growing pretty well.
Yeah.
So I think that's another way to kind of like hack the system, I guess.
If I can jump in with a little bit of inspirational
Please,
sentiments.
Gerald. Absolutely.
So,
Get the tissues, everyone. Ready?
yeah, I mean,
Inspire
maybe I shouldn't use the word inspirational. So this is the way I always look at it, especially when it comes to like nerdy content, because Armando's reference is great, but that's even also like a sub-niche of a camera niche that we're in, you know. I don't know how many of those slices of pie there are in the greater YouTube scheme, you know. But here's what I would say is that everybody has something that they're passionate about, and the word passion gets thrown around, so I'm going to be more specific. Everybody has something where they've been told before that they're talking about it too much at like a dinner, or maybe it's just me, but I'm going to pretend that other people like me too. That they're like, whoa, slow down about the dinosaurs, big guy, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is where you're just like, every other topic is like you're kind of okay about, but then somebody brought up stamp collecting and you're like, oh, you want to know something about stamps, and you kind of like livens you up. That's your YouTube channel, right?
Yeah.
And not only will that help you find the audience of people that are jazzed up like you are about whatever that is, but also it creates that correct funnel of like the passion that people say they want to see passion, and that's I think that's the most entertaining quality. It doesn't. I watch all kinds of weird stuff that like I'm not even into, but the person that's presenting it just like is so into what they're doing. I recently found this channel called Nerd Forge, which is like, I think it's like a Norwegian or Swedish, maybe Norwegian, person who like paints and whatever, but she's just like so into these like, you know, like nerdy artistic things she does that I'm like, this is great. And so I just watch the videos because of that, you know? Everybody's got their thing that they're...
Well, when each one of you have this brand, right? Like, I know unmistakably who you are, right? Because of the content that you do. So it's more about the intangibles then. It's less about, it's using the technology that we're creating to build your brand. So how do you do that? How do you get started with building a brand? First you find your passion, which is clear, and then how do you make it be the best you it can be on video? How do you transfer that over to footage?
Are you talking about like actually shooting it, or?
Yeah, like how do you brand your channel? How do you brand yourself? How do you make it? Because if it's about the intangibles, then people can find success, right? But how do you go about becoming you? How did you become Gerald Undone? Because people know you and know your brand and understand it and know your type of humor and what kind of content you do. And you know, you had someone earlier come up and say that they love your videos and you're their favorite person on YouTube. And one of the things that they love about it is that you make everything fast. So how do you build that brand over time so that people know who you are? Like, I know Sarah, I see a video pop up, and even though I see Sarah's name, I'm like, that's a Sarah video.
Yeah, that's a good point. I made a lot of bad videos first, I guess. I would say that if you go, I mean, unless you're really good at these people that like nail this kind of branding stuff, but unless you go into it with some sort of master plan, you're probably wasting effort on the initial thing. Like, just get out there and make the content. But I think that you'll start to see things, whether it's gags that you're like recurring in your videos because they landed well, or just like for me, I kind of like did this whole purple shtick, you know? I didn't create the color purple, I don't know. But I was looking around and I was like, nobody's using purple in any of their thumbnails, or they're like, everybody had those like tube lights that were like, you know, that blue color and like red color, and I was like, I'm gonna make things all purple from now on, just to be different. And then I didn't control that became like a brand of thing, kind of like the world did, where then people started sharing like, oh, I saw a purple suitcase, and they're like, hey, girl, look at your suitcase, or whatever. And so I just kind of let that happen. But I also had so many failed branding things throughout the years where I just kind of like tried something that was so cringy, and then you're like, well, we won't talk about that anymore, you know? I would say build it over time and don't.
Yeah, I think if you can just authentically be yourself, and they said it in the film for the R5, like, you can give everyone in this room the same camera and the same set, and we're gonna all come out with different images, right? Same with video, and that's why when there's like a concept deck or a pitch, they pick you because of your vantage point. So I think if you can just authentically walk in there and be who you are and offer what you have, it's not for everybody, right? But it's gonna be for somebody. And And so I think the more we try to be like somebody else, the less authentic you are, and I think that's very transparent, especially on channels like YouTube. You can immediately see who you connect with, and same with going in and pitching in a room to get a job, you know?
And maybe lean into it once you know, if you can find out what it is that, when you said like if everybody's on the same camera, what makes you different, what makes them, if you can lean into it, that's probably favorable, because like there's already a bit of a perception of like, this is how Sarah does her thing. So then be aware of it, I guess, and then lean into it and be like, now you're getting
that's right,
Sarah
it's the mom jeans. Look at how many C-stands I can fit in this minivan.
Right. And then you start selling mom jean merch.
That's right, that's right.
Get your bag.
Yeah, I think like it's gonna sound cliche, just go out there and, you know, put videos out there, because I technically don't have a brand, and I don't do things like, you know, like Gerald has an intro, which is fine, and a lot of people do have an intro, which is good, because it identifies when you hear the little jingle, dun dun da 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 da. It's like, oh, it's a Gerald video, right?
Oh my gosh, if we asked everyone to sing it,
right.
How many people think you know your jingle? That could be your new soundbite.
That intro, by the way, is one of those failed branding attempts from like 6 years ago that I just kind of like let slide.
Or same thing, like he has that, you know, where he reads a comment from like the last video that somebody posted. Like that's his thing, and a lot of people do that. I don't really have a thing. For me, it's about. I never want it to feel like a job. So when I put out a video, it's because I'm having fun and I want to put that video out there. I don't want to think about the whole like, oh, the brand or this, or that's just my take on it. But clearly it's been working out, because I'm here.
You have a texture to your videos that I noticed that consistently, I'd say for a few years at least, that your videos, I think I would describe it as texture. I don't know, but your shot kind of looks like an Armando shot. Like your A-roll, the way you do talking head or whatever. I feel like you soften the light a little bit. I don't know if you use like halation on your bulbs or whatever, but there's this kind of like a sort of like.
Now you're talking dirty.
There's like a glowy. There's a glow and there's a certain power.
We talk about it.
Should I leave you too alone?
I just feel like even if you're not trying to brand, that's like what I was saying to Sarah to lead into it, is that eventually as you make more content, you're either going to find some people that do it or that works for you, and it will slowly evolve itself into a look or a sound or whatever, you know.
Do you have teams that you work with? I know some of you work in teams when you work alone. People are curious, you know, how many people are behind the productions that you have?
I had an agent during COVID, so that's how I was getting my work, the commercial work. And I also monetized my children. They all got work permits, and they were my talent for a lot of stuff.
Free labor.
Free labor. Well, it turns out they get paid more than me. I found out later, so that's embarrassing. SAG, they're like still getting residual checks from Disney, and I'm like, excuse me, I wiped her bottom right before we filmed, and I said all the things. I lit this, and I get no residuals. Great. But I do have an editor that I will sometimes. I have a couple of large contracts. And I have an editor for one of those so that I can go, but I run and gun, I shoot everything, and most of mine is docu-series storytelling, so they give me the idea, and they don't force me to storyboard it out. I don't have a video village where I have someone looking over my shoulder. They're clients who know me and they trust me, and so I can pretty much go on my own, and I have a second shooter sometimes and a sound guy, but I can go all by myself and still get the job done. That's how I started. Now it's just nice to have a team accessible to me, but I'm pretty small.
I do have a team. I have an editor, somebody that also helps me shoot videos. And then if we're working on bigger projects, then I just hire depending on what the project is. Sometimes I do like these, again, just the way I like to do them, like these crazy cinematic, you know, breakdowns. So then I hire a full crew and stuff to do those type of videos, because they're fun.
So do you call yourself the director on those sets? Do you call yourself, because I have trouble being like, not everybody. I want to also be the cinematographer, and you know, so what would you?
It depends, because sometimes I plan them, so it's kind of like you. I'm like, okay, well, I'm directing, but I'm also the talent.
The auteur.
Because you're in them.
Right. It really depends on the project. Sometimes I have another director just be like, hey, I just want to focus on the actual content, because I'm doing a camera review, so I don't want to focus on like being the DP or anything like that, because my focus is getting this video out there and focusing more on like how the camera works. But I mean, we usually work side by side and be like, well, let's do this, but it just really depends on the project.
It's fun to have a team, you know? It's fun to collaborate. I think that's the one thing we didn't get in COVID is any collaboration. So it's fun to walk into a room. It's fun to be in a creative space. We have people who have other ideas. Yeah, did you see that? You're welcome. I'll be here all day. So I love collaborating with others, though.
That's what inspired my YouTube.
You're alone in your living room with a 7-week-old, so how's that going? Is he giving good feedback? Is Oscar like really okay?
I like the collaborative spirit with YouTube. Whenever I get a chance to bring somebody out, not to like work for them, but like to like, hey, let's jump on, let's talk about something or whatever. That's awesome. Those videos are really fun to make. But as far as my camera reviews, I do it mostly myself. Shout out to my spouse that is sometimes like the autofocus subject, or like the helps me like, hey, can you point this at me for a second while I do something silly? So it's good to have like literally like some basic camera help when you need it. I've often thought about like how to expand in that way by like hiring somebody. I have different, there's a control aspect where I don't know how to like let go of certain things, but also where I would fit that in. But I think it would be great if I could have somebody on site that could like help with literally everything, help shoot, and also having another brain that whether it's just a sounding board or like throw ideas at you, or maybe just comes up with something fun in the middle of the thing. Like I think that's a good thing to be exposed to, because YouTube's weird, man, when you're like by yourself, filming yourself, and then you're like, I got a big monitor showing my own face, and then like I edit my video where I see myself talking to myself, and when I post it, it's like, you need somebody else around.
You gotta love yourself, right? Okay, so I have one final question. Just fair warning, everyone, think about your questions right now, because we're gonna open it up for questions in just a second. We're gonna have my friend Amy over there, has a microphone. She's gonna bring it over.
Happy birthday, Amy!
Was it Amy's birthday?
Amy's
Happy birthday! It's Amy's birthday, everybody! So, final question for you all. Everyone is thinking about their questions. If you had to leave a budding video maker right now with a piece of advice about what to do for themselves, for the world, about their videos, whatever the case might be, what would you tell them to do?
I would say just make it. I think so many of us wait. We're waiting for the better gear. We're waiting for our friends to be able, like on avail. We're waiting. Just shoot it. I always learn more from my mistakes, and I grow 10 times more when I'm like, oh my god, than I do when I have it already. It's never going to be perfect. I think that's the best thing about filmmaking is like a photo. We can freeze it, we can pick it apart technically, but a film, if it makes you feel something, you win. And so I think it's accessible to everyone. And I mean, there's a lot of technicality behind it, but I think my advice to everybody is just try, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Like slide into the DMs of these guys, like ask someone. If you see a film and you like it, shoot them a message and be like, that slow-mo was awesome. Were you in 120? What were you shooting at? Were you at, what's your favorite ending?
Are you in my DMs right now?
I'm in your DMs right now.
That's really accurate.
So I do think we are, like he said, we're passionate about it. I can talk frame rates all day. It's my favorite. So don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, to piggyback on what she said, some of the videos that have gotten the most views are videos that I literally was not going to upload. That's because I just wasn't happy with them, or I just felt like, again, you can always make an excuse. You know what, the lighting was off. Oh my gosh, I have a really greasy forehead. So I'm like, gosh, I didn't, whatever the reason is, and I didn't want to upload it, but then it's like, you know what, whatever, I'm just gonna upload it, and it ends up getting like 1 million views or something like that. And to think that I was at that point where I was not going to upload that video, and of course that grows the brand, the channel, everything, sponsor deals. So just, I know again, I'm gonna say it sounds cliche, just go out there and stop making excuses, upload videos, that's it.
I like that. I would say that there's this force that you shouldn't ignore, which is this sort of like, this thing between like this momentum and this inertia that I feel, and I've talked to other creators that feel as well when it comes to creating content, which is that everything is laid out for you now to, especially if we're talking about online, and maybe it's true even if you're just sending the work off to the client and as a deliverable. But once that happens, there's a lot of feedback or like some feedback loop or analytics, or YouTube's telling you your video's 9 out of 10 and you're upset about that because you didn't see the fireworks, or you know your reel thing is down, and then it's just this whole thing, right? But sometimes I find myself in a position where I don't have time for that because I got the one video down, but there's another video coming out the next day. You can totally get this momentum to you where as soon as the one video is done, you're on the next video, and the momentum builds, and not only are you making like better stuff, but you can keep that going. You can literally keep that going indefinitely. It's weird. But as soon as you stop and you start paying attention to the numbers, or you start second guessing with imposter syndrome, you second guessing your craft, whether or not that video was any good, should I have uploaded or whatever, then this is like inertia thing that happens instead, where it becomes harder to upload. And then your next video, you're in your head about it. You don't want to. So my advice would be aware that it exists, that that's a real thing, that it's powerful, and if you can, like, literally just on to the next video, almost irreverently, like there's this like post and ghost joke where it's like, you know, the video's up, just like on to the next one, you know, make sure it goes up, do a good job, get it up there, you know, do whatever you got to do, and then it's on to the next thing, and keep that, what is this? Keep that momentum going, you know? Yeah.
I love it. That's really great advice, and for anyone getting into video, I think you just get in the start of it. Like, do it now, don't worry about it being perfect, and be consistent in posting. Thank you, that's great. So let's take some questions from the audience now. Here we go, we have some hands up. Yeah, over there. I'm gonna come over to you, sir.
Hey.
A second.
You said you like talking about frame rates. And,
yeah, let's get into it.
I would really like to know what frame rates you use, and when you use different frame rates for different jobs, or anything like that, like 24, 25, 30. If you're using slow motion, 120 frames, how you bring that into something like 24 frames per second. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great.
Do you guys want to? I shoot in 24. I did shoot a show for Lifetime. They forced me to shoot it in 30. And I was like, you're wrong. So I like 24, and then a lot of my supplementary B-roll will be in 60, and occasionally 120. I find we don't have the time to actually, most of my stuff is 2 minutes or less, and we have a big story to tell in those 2 to 3 minutes, so 120, you're really milking it. But like when I shot for Disney, they asked I shoot everything in 60, and they were gonna drop the frames, the extra frames in post, because they obviously, I'm sending it to their editor, they're not in control of what I'm doing, I don't know if they fully trusted me. And they were like, you know, we just want to have the ability to slow things. So I think there are hard rules we all learn in school, like you are shooting at 24 and this is cinematic and your shutter speed is at 50 and don't you dare break that. And I find more and more in these spaces, they're like, yeah, do it at 60, we're gonna drop those frames in post and maybe we'll slow it. And I'm like, so I'm adjusting to that, but I shoot everything in 24 unless it's for a TV show, and then they ask me to do 30. But even my commercial work I do in 24, and then I do my supplemental, my B-roll when there's no audio I need to sync or anything in 60, and then I export my timeline in 24 so that all those things are, that's how I do it. I don't know if that's...
Well said, and we're all NTSC, right? So we all would shoot 24.
Yeah, if I was in London, I guess I'd have to shoot 25 so that I don't get flickered, but I don't. What, are you guys 24? Are you guys 30?
Yeah, 24.
Okay.
Although I've heard some arguments for 30 recently that they're grounded if you're into tech. If you shoot screens a lot, that shooting 24 is problematic. I did a video with Dave Lee, who shoots like his phone screens and his tablets and everything, and he used to shoot 24 because it looks, you know, as we're expecting it, 30 looks weird. But when he shoots 24, then all the screens and everything look weird, you know?
Yeah.
So 30 is better in most ways, but we're just used to 24, I guess.
I do think this goes back to like the whole theme of like rules are meant to be broken, right? So I don't know if there's a right or a wrong anymore.
Next question, we had someone over here, Amy.
Hi. So I have a two-part question actually. I have an exposure question and a color science question. My exposure question is, what is your like hierarchy of importance when it comes to the exposure triangle? Me personally, it's aperture and then shutter speed and then ISO, because I love aperture. I feel like bokeh is very cinematic in video, but I want to get your opinion on that as well. Also, my color science question is, so I am a Sony, I have an A7R4, of course, the R5 R7, R5 came out.
I know.
So I am looking to upgrade, but the camera I have on me right now is the A7C. I want to try and sell my A7C for the R5, R7, R5, and keep my R4. However, the R4 does not have S-Cinetone. So, me being a filmmaker, do you feel as though, in your opinion, if I shoot in S-Cinetone, can I also splice in S-Log 3, S-Gamma 3 Cine footage? And would it be super noticeable? Would that, like, would it be able, like, would it not translate well?
Are you doing anything to it, or are you just throwing it in? Because yes is the answer.
You're gonna have to color grade it, yeah.
But can I color grade it, but still have it match as S-Cinetone and S-Log 3?
Of course.
Okay.
But
It's gonna take a hot minute.
I don't mind doing the work.
Okay, yeah.
it depends on your skill. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're willing to do it, you can do it. You can do anything, really. You know. But how easy you want your life to be? That's the question. You know. As far as the exposure question, is that video or photo when you're talking about aperture? Is what you like?
Primarily video.
Then yeah, shutter speed is kind of.
I always obey the shutter speed,
Yeah.
the law, like your shutter speed is double your frame rate. So I follow that rule. I use ND filters because I'm 1.4 for life. I love to shoot wide open, and so you have to really use it.
But even if you don't want to, apertures, for video, apertures should be, when we're not talking about neutral density, but aperture, the iris should be what you're adjusting theoretically. Because when it comes up to certain cameras, like higher end cameras, you're basically shooting at base ISO no matter what. So you're not adjusting the ISO, you're not adjusting your shutter angle. So you can stop down your iris or you can open up your iris, right? And the things that determine that are how much you want to focus in the frame and what kind of light situation are you working with. Because you can't do reverse NDs in the dark, so you need to open up and get more light in. For photo, you can play around.
Yeah.
1/5000 shutter, whatever you want.
Yeah.
But what do you think, Armando?
I light it. If I want to shoot, for me, I always like to shoot a specific aperture, so I'll just light it accordingly.
Right.
That's the way I get around it.
So then, yeah, aperture is the most important, right? That's what everybody's saying. Yeah.
Very good. Other questions? Any other questions? We have someone here over there,
Okay, so I'm wondering, for YouTube, how long did it take for you to monetize your YouTube channel? And I guess for you, since you don't have a YouTube channel,
Should I start and I'll be the experiment, guys? I'll start today and let you know.
Shoot. And then I'm wondering if brands were reaching out to you like early, they just saw that your content was incredible from day one, or how long it actually took? Or are you guys reaching out to brands now?
So I got very lucky because the minute I signed up to YouTube, like the following day they had the partner program open to everyone, because before it was exclusive. And then when I had signed up, like I guess it was like the next day or the day after, they had opened it up so anybody could be a partner. And I didn't know about this, so my brother-in-law was like, yeah, you can turn on monetization and you can make money off of it. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, I put up a video about detailing a car and I make $50 a month. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, it pays like DirecTV bill or something like that. This was back in 2011, I think it was. And so, long story short, I turn on monetization and I get a check in the mail. Now, this is not going to happen anymore. And it was for almost $1,000. And I'm like, what? I just put out a stupid video and I made $1,000? Like, this is insane. I thought it was a joke because it said Google on there. I'm like, they made a mistake. They're going to call me and be like, you got to send it back or something. So I didn't spend the money immediately. And then the next month comes out and it's like $1,200. And the next month it's like $1,500. And it just kept going up. This was like, again, it was like May of 2011, I believe. Whenever the iPhone 4S came out, whatever year that was. By the end of that year, like December, I was making $5,000 a month just from Google AdSense money. Again, that does not happen anymore, so don't expect that. So to answer your question, I got lucky in that partner program that it was available. And then of course now they've modified it and locked it and you have to get like a certain amount of views. I don't know, they changed it recently.
Subscribers and hours.
Right, it's been weird. And then for brand deals, which I didn't care because I was like, cool, I'm making money. I think it was like a year or two after that brands were reaching out and I didn't even know how that worked out. I was like, oh, what is this? They want to pay me? I don't get it. But
It was similar for me. I monetized immediately because I could, because it was before the limitations came in. But I wasn't making anything, pennies, you know. But I figured that I would turn it on because what are the consequences really? And the same thing happened. A lot of the videos that I uploaded were evergreen, like what we call, so that they probably have earned me some money forever because I did that. And regarding the brand deal thing, I feel like there's sort of a shift that happens, which I think is kind of what your question was. So in the beginning, when I wanted to talk about certain cameras, for example, in my field, I don't know if yours is different, but like Sony's not calling me up to send me a $4,000 camera to play with when I just like started a YouTube channel. Like they didn't get to learn that there's a new YouTube channel, send them a camera, you know. So I had to try to build a relationship with a local camera store that was like, hey, I'm trying to build a channel, and here's what I've got so far, and maybe I can just like borrow a camera for a couple days and make a video. And then I was able to use that to grow my channel to a certain point to where I started getting things in my email, but be warned, these early things are not the good ones, right? They're like, oh, we got a new massage tool or whatever, you know, on Amazon. And
Different kind of video.
But the funny thing is that I bet you everybody will do at least one of those because you get so excited when they send you, like, let's send you something free and you can make a video. You're like, sign me up, you know? I think my first video was like, Ben Q sent this weird light bar that you can like put on top of your monitor and like it shines a light. I was like, great thing! So I was like, do it. So I made a whole video about a light bar. So there's that phase where you are interacting with brands, but they're, you know, you're low profile. But so you keep grinding it out, you keep working on the side relationships of whatever product or whatever it is you're into, and then eventually something kind of just happens where you make one video that say maybe it's with Sony or whatever. This is again camera talk, but I'm positive that any brand has this, where they have people that literally watch YouTube videos, and they go and they look for new up and coming YouTubers, where they look and see what the climate is on something that just came out, and then maybe you happen to just catch a good title or a good thumbnail around that time, and so they watch your video, and maybe the person who is paid to watch these videos liked your face, you know, and then next thing you know, they're like, we're gonna bring that person out to our little so-and-so thing or whatever, and then you're in, you know, and then...
I don't have a YouTube channel, but... Oh, so yeah, also Instagram. I only post my kids on there. I'm a weirdo because I find that my commercials, if I post one of my brands, then they all want to be posted, and I want my Instagram to be my kids and my happy place, and they force me to make YouTube channels for them. And no kidding, my 8-year-old the other day was like, "You're not going to get out the B camera? What about a rim light?" I'm like, "Slow down. Okay, this is for free. You can't afford mommy's day rate." And so they want to be YouTubers. But I don't share a lot of that stuff personally, but I fell into branding accidentally, and it really has been incredible, and I love it. So I do think there's a huge space, especially for female filmmakers, especially for hybrid female filmmakers and photographers. I booked, I was saying before COVID, like, a travel agency hired me. I don't shoot travel. It was like 35 postcards in a 1-minute. Travel Madrid, travel Colombia. They sent me to Bogota, they sent me to Toronto and New York. And it was so fun, and I was like, why did you hire me? And they were like, well, you were the only person who pitched both. You said you could do both. Everybody else wanted 2 teams. And it was, my rate was higher, but I was much cheaper in the long run. And so like little things like that I think are really helpful. How do you figure out your prices? Yeah, I asked friends, and I will always talk money with anybody because I feel like, and I don't know why people are always weird about it, and I think you have to know, and especially I do think there's a lot of mom talks out there and like people starting out, and people will slide into your DMs, brands, and be like, oh, you know what, I'll give you $50 if you shoot this. And I'm like, great, my kids need a rate, I'm gonna own the copyright, but newbies don't know that. And I think that it's easy to get taken advantage of on social media. People will just give away their stuff because they're excited. Because when you get that first email from whatever, Keds or Target or whoever it is, you're like, oh my God, I made it. And that's great. But I do think it's important we protect each other. and kind of talk about what we're doing.
That's a great point about community. Years ago, actually, Armando and I had this conversation at, it might have been at like Camera Camp from Sony or something like that, where it was like we talked about we should have like a union or something.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with sponsored content. Like if you work with a brand to do like an integration in your video, you'll get emails that, and we're talking like big, like borderline, like blue chip companies that email you like, oh, you want to do a brand integration for $75, $150, whatever. And maybe when you're starting out, you're like, okay, well that's dollars. My previous rate was 0.
Yeah.
So we're upgrading. But then you find out that another person who's doing similar to you got paid $2,000.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, where's the thing here? So communication is key.
Yeah.
Because like,
Especially, I think the bigger the brand, the more, like, you know, Huggies, I'm not giving them my contract. There's no negotiation. They're going to own what I shoot. And that's, so you just have to know, like, where you're coming in at and ask for that help.
talk to the people that
And
do
talk
it.
to other people who are doing it, yeah. So there's a lot of people who
The
are
beautiful
really,
thing about YouTube though is that there's no shelf life when it comes to like brands. Because the problem is, like, let's say for example, we'll just pretend this is not like an Apple Watch, but this is like a generic brand, right? If they want to advertise, think about if they were to hire a company just to produce a commercial for this watch, how much money would it cost them, right? Then you have the reach, right? Like if they wanted to reach,
Because they have to run those ads on
right.
Facebook or whatever
If-
too.
Right, if they run it on Facebook, then let's say they spend $10,000 a month or something like that. Once that ad money gets exhausted, then that ad is no longer being shown. But then I can pull up analytics from videos that I've done 5-6 years ago and I'd say, look, I'm still getting X amount of views and whatever ad was on there is still being viewed. So you have like an infinite shelf life when it comes to that. So
the
don't-
production.
And the production,
You also
the production,
produce it,
right?
yeah.
So don't sell yourself short, because a lot of times they'll be like, "Yeah, I'm getting this monitor that's being sent to me, and I'm getting paid $2,000," and it's like, and they're happy about it. I'm like, dude, $2,000, like, hire a crew just to get that commercial to shoot that. $2,000 is nothing.
I eat that up in 5 hours
Right.
or less. You know.
Okay, next question.
Right, my question is to piggyback on the YouTube question that you just asked. For hybrid shooters, that is actually looking into becoming creatives on YouTube, that to have to kind of get an outreach in this saturated, very saturated social media era that we're experiencing right now. What's your take on having multiple channels with different content in order to get the eyes on you, to get the customers in, or to get the flow, or get that ideal contract that you're looking for? What's your take on doing that, to kind of deviate from the photography and videography niche? Let's say you want to do like a meditation channel or a cooking channel, to then get that grabs to come, you know, to ask, so you could get that ideal contract. What's your take on it?
I can tell you like some hard facts about that. So the notion right now of how YouTube will deal with your videos is that if it's the same audience, it should be on the same channel. But if it's a different audience, it should be on a different channel. That's good YouTube strategy, okay? And then as far as cross traffic, it's not great. So you want to build those for what they are, because if you just think of the logic of it, if it is a different audience, and that's why you have a different channel, then why the heck do they care about what you're doing over the other thing? There will be some that are into both, just like you are, right? But every time that you add a new layer of complexity, the pool is getting smaller. So don't rely on it. Unless these verticals you're talking about are massive. You know what I mean? Then the crossover might be sufficient. But if you're talking about should you make multiple channels, if the audiences are different, you should. Because otherwise it gets into a mess, like whatever I'm doing with my channel right now. Don't do that.
Amy, next question. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, Gerald, definitely a serial video and A7R5 videos probably don't mix well together.
I mean, I'm not.
both delicious.
Yeah, my question is, I've been shooting like still photography like for all my life. It's been a hobby for me. But like for lately, I've been trying to get into video, and I find myself like learning the technicality of things pretty easily. Especially, you know, watching videos like Gerald, figure out like log and editing and all that stuff, exposure pretty well because I have the photography background. But I kind of find it hard on like mastering, you know, like camera movements, storytelling, all that kind of stuff that I haven't really built the skill as a still photographer. So what are your advice or like, I don't know, tips, or how do I learn and get better in these aspects of video shooting? Thank you.
Storytelling and camera movements and stuff?
Yeah, those are my favorite things. I think we were just, I don't know if it was us having this conversation, but just yesterday we were saying like, one of the best things about TikTok and these reels is like, my 8-year-old knows what a match cut is, you know? We're doing all these like quick pan transitions and seamless shots, and I think storytelling is universal. The techniques are there. I saw someone yesterday with a zoom lens doing the vertigo effect. Do you know what that is with draws? And I was like, oh my gosh, you're doing a vertigo shot right now on this A7 IV? And he's like, yeah. And I think they're just transcendent storytelling, and I think you can find a lot of information on YouTube now for these kinds of things, but watch any movie, you're gonna see there's always the establishing shot, there's the detail shot, there's the medium, and the reasons why and how those translate. And I'm happy after to give you like some of my favorite filmmakers, and I mean, I'm the one who nerds out and watches all the behind the scenes of Steven Spielberg after, and I love to hear about why they shot it on that lens and why they chose this angle, and you know, I think that kind of stuff will really depend on your personality and what kind of storyteller you are. I am not gonna jump on a skateboard and use it as a gimbal and do a whip pan. I'm not that person, but it works great for others. So I think you're gonna, if you start to find films you love and filmmakers you appreciate their style, start picking their brain and be like, well, so what did you do here and why? They love to talk about why they did that.
Also try to replicate some of your favorite movies, like some of the shots, just to kind of break it down. So it's like, oh, I really love this scene. Like, you try to like, you know, try to match, like, oh, they had a, you know, blue light over here, and try to, I think it's like as an experimental type of thing. It's good to kind of like figure things out so that, I mean, it's cool that you can watch a ton of videos, but sometimes when you figure it out yourself and like you really get the wheels spinning, then it just, because filmmaking is really about problem solving, you know? So I think when you start trying to do it on your own and trying to figure things out, it's really when you unlock that like, oh, okay, that's how they, I think they did it, and my shot looks very similar, so I like that. So
and lay all the layers, right? The audio adds so much to video. That's like our one standout from photos is like we have the audio, which is a whole nother level of emotion and feeling. It puts you in a place.
You don't capture audio in your photos?
I don't capture any audio on my photos. Oh my god, yeah, let me know after. And so I'm that weirdo who opened my window yesterday and hung my H5 zoom out of the 8th floor window just to get some native audio of New York, because I'm gonna make a video when I leave here and I want that audio of what the city sounds like. And so join the Weirdo Club. Come see us.
There's a lot of podcasts and BTS videos and stuff too that like break things down.
Funny a podcast about filmmaking, but yeah.
Well, I don't know if you, but like video podcasts. I feel like doesn't like Deacons have one or something like that where you can just like talk about.
Right.
Yeah, like I mean, whoever you like, they probably have a video series or where they're like, this is how we got the shot, and you can like watch a whole featurette on what's that War of 1912 or whatever, the one with all the wonders.
1917.
1917.
The one that's like the whole movie looks like one continuous.
There's a lot of stuff in that they shouldn't be given out for free, you know. So I mean, it's like. And then you can layer your knowledge by, if we talk about say camera moves, for example, there's just like basic terms. So like look up like, what are all the camera moves, you know? And then there's a list, and then you can like go in and be like, how to do a nice insert X here, you know what I mean? Like great trucking shot or whatever, you know. And then there's endless content. And then once you get a base of that, then you just got to do it 1,000 times and then practice, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that feels like a great one to end on. So thank you guys so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. You've been wonderful. Amazing questions. Thanks for being here. We'll do it again next time. Definitely in 5 years, so we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Find out about that vertical video
That's
nonsense,
right.
am I right?
Exactly.
You'll
Thanks
know when the
everyone.
TV's coming
Appreciate it.
this way.
Yeah.
And stick around. We have Christina Bettermeyer coming in at 2:30, so that's gonna be really cool. Hang in there.